Hi, I'm Mike Siegel. Do you believe in good luck? Our first homeowners do. When they moved into this 150-year-old home, they found more than they bargained for. A collection of antiques, plus a mystery that dates back to the Civil War. John and Kathleen Von Walter are a couple of antique collectors who had their hearts set on this antique home in Carver, Minnesota.
We had driven by this house and said to each other, if that house ever goes up for sale, we at least have to look at it. And we did.
Before long, the 1856 East Lake Queen Anne Victorian was theirs. What was it about this place, all those years you drove by, that made you say, that's our house?
I think the Victorian embellishments and how many of them were there. And then when we stepped inside the house and saw that it was untouched and original, that did it. We were hooked.
The home's original hand-carved banisters, wood floors, and stained glass windows were picture perfect. Someone wealthy and prominent must have lived here, and the signs were everywhere. They got their first clue in the master bath.
The soapstone countertop up in the bathroom is very unique. We prize that. It's one of the things in the house that we know is special.
In the kitchen, the couple discovered a 9-foot-tall, custom-built hutch that must have been pretty fancy in its day. It's in pretty good condition for how old is it?
About 1881.
Wow.
It was obviously built for the kitchen because the woodwork on the edge matches the woodwork in the kitchen.
Could all their antiques be worth serious money? Kathleen and John would find out later. But first, they were dying to know who left them there, so the Von Walters began digging for clues, and the first one surfaced in a place most people wouldn't want to look. Where did you find all this stuff?
This came out of 5 of the old privies, the old outhouses.
A privy is an outhouse?
Right. And
you didn't dig through an outhouse.
I didn't, but somebody else did. They approached us and asked if they could excavate some of them. And this is just a tiny bit. We've got like 15 boxes of things that came up from the privy.
The old privies turned up medicine bottles, old mugs, even a small gun. When you see all these things together and you say you have like 15 boxes of this stuff, what kind of picture does that paint of the people that used to live here?
I think it tells you a lot about how they lived, what their lifestyle was. A lot of the china and plates came all the way from Europe, which was amazing in the 1800s.
It sure seemed like a wealthy family once lived in the house. And in the basement stairway, Kathleen discovered they also had a secret.
I saw some hinges on the wall, and I couldn't figure out why there were hinges in the middle of a wall. And got up and kind of was pushing and pulling and reached up into the top shelf of the back of this door. And there was a little knob, a little black knob, and it had a little arrow pointing down in pencil, and I pulled on it, and the whole wall opened up.
It was a hidden door that led to a small bathroom.
Reach up and turn that to the right.
Listen.
Yes.
Hey!
Our secret door.
The Von Walters learned that back in the 1800s, when the house was built, there was good reason to have a secret door.
This actually was a hidey hole. When this house was built in 1856, the Indians were still attacking. And families, if they had the means in the room, would build a room right in the middle of the house that would be safe from arrows and from bullets. But they also had an access out. And in this case, it would go down the basement.
But who would have hid it in there? John found more clues in a secret cubby. There were boxes and bags of receipts, letters, and pictures. One of the photos showed his house with a horse. John learned it was a world champion that stopped by on its way to a race. So what year around was this thing?
Oh, probably about 1904 to 1906.
John examined the papers he found, hoping for a name to tie everything together. The tax receipt for the year 1886.
$12.67, and that includes both county and Carver city tax, town tax.
Is this one of the first things you saw with the name on this?
Yep, John Hay Bison. His family owned the home the longest of any of the owners.
How long were they in here?
From 1881 until 1965.
The Von Walters learned John Hay Bison was a Civil War veteran who owned a chain of hardware stores in town.
He was doing pretty good for himself, judging by these checks and receipts.
In the 1880s, Hay Bison decked out the home with all the trimmings, including the rich stained glass windows, the soapstone sink, and the impressive hutch.
Do you have any idea of the value of all these items?
Not a clue.
But you're a little curious, though.
A little curious.
Maybe we can fix that today.
So we invited appraiser Jennifer Sexton over to investigate.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. Nice to meet you.
Starting with the stained glass window.
What a beautiful window.
But will Jennifer think they're pricey as well? Will that antique sink be awash with cash?
Original antique brass hardware.
Could the hutch be an antique dealer's dream?
This is worth some money.
They'll have to wait until Jennifer's done investigating to find out. Just ahead, a New York home turns up ties to a rock and roll legend.
Bob Dylan lived here for a while.